In sports, if you want to be the best, there are no off days.
Welcome into the No Off Days podcast, the NODPOD. We got Chris Cato, BK's in the booth. I am Scott Smith, and patriotism high around here this week because it is 4th of July week. So happy birthday, America. We love the 4th around here. Do you get up for this holiday?
Yeah, I'm up for any holiday, just about.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, we've done holidays before. Isn't this in your, was it top 3?
This was top 3. No, I don't remember. That was like, 32 episodes ago.
Yeah.
It's high, though. I mean, 4th of July doesn't disappoint usually. You get some time off work. You get some time with the family. You get some time with the barbecue grill, the pool, the beach if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And then a fireworks show. Yeah.
A little barbecue, wave old glory, blow something up. That's how we do it in Florida. That's one aspect about Florida 4th of July that I really appreciate, is that it's not just a 4th celebration. It's all week long at various times of the day. Something will be popping and cracking in the skies high above.
Yes, but I will say our fireworks selection in terms of what you can go to a store and buy, terrible in Florida.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, well, you have to drive.
I'm originally from California where they don't sell fireworks.
That's right, because you have
this is much better.
Nature's fireworks.
Sparklers I'm happy with.
Yeah, so I guess this is an upgrade for that. But no, when you're from Alabama and you've seen real fireworks, Scott, you come down here to Florida and you're like, what is this? This is a firecracker.
Yeah, no. It's a tank of gasoline with a rope string attached to it.
Tell you what, I was actually in Alabama for New Year's Eve, and my brother and I went to this, it's like a mobile home on the side of a road that has all this high-powered stuff that I'm sure should not be legal.
That's how you know it's good, right?
You load the truck up with it, and you just, you put on a show for the neighbors, and the neighbors could be 10 miles away, and they will see it. But yeah, so you have to drive to the state line to get the good stuff.
So they don't have the little whirly birds and the piccolo Pete's?
No, they have these. We had a tank.
Actual cannons.
We had a tank, like a real tank, and I thought this thing's going to be lame. It's got a little, it's got the tank cannon, and it shot, and it continued to shoot for like 5 minutes, blasting out these fireballs, and it's spinning around like the sprinkler in the lawn,
everybody.
And we're hiding behind vehicles, behind the gas tank of a vehicle, which is really not safe.
At the very end, it said, "Roll Tide!"
So we, and we lost all of our limbs, but it was worth it.
Oh, good. That was 4th of July, what, 2? You made it. You made it this far.
That's every year.
Let's bring in BK in the booth. Brian, how are you on the 4th of July?
I enjoy it.
You burn a lot of things? Do you set off? Does the King family kind of host the fireworks display on the street?
There was a time when we did.
Yeah.
But those days have passed. But
you guys became unpatriotic for some reason?
No, the girls grew up.
The girls got older.
And it was just kind of me out there. And it's kind of boring if you're just out there by yourself.
You running around with maybe a sprinkler?
A sprinkler?
Or a sparkler?
He's the sprinkler guy. All right, let's put these out. It's dangerous, kids.
Dousing everyone's 4th of July
It hasn't even blown up yet. Come on. Yeah.
No, it's fun, though. I enjoy it. And you're absolutely right about Alabama fireworks.
Yeah, they're the best, right?
Yeah,
Georgia's got some pretty good ones, too.
Darn
Georgia.
I need to make that drive one of these years up there.
It's worth it.
Yes.
I'll impress my neighbors.
Bring a big trailer.
They'll probably scoop me on out of the neighborhood after I do those. All right, so what do we have on today's big program, BK?
Ooh, a great show today. We got Krazy George Henderson.
Krazy George.
Yeah, the name may not ring the bell with you, but I guarantee you, if you see this guy, once you see him and once you hear him, you'll recognize who this guy is.
Well, I have to admit out of the gates, I mean, this was an interview that I had been pursuing for a while. So I grew up going to baseball games in the San Francisco Bay Area, and this guy was always present. So everybody back there knows who Krazy George is. And I think that once you hear him and see him, that you'll probably say, oh, okay. Because nowadays they hire out like superfans. They're not only loyal to one team, they've kind of made this, a new profession, so to speak. They'll travel if they're real good, and he was the guy that blazed the trail.
He was the godfather of this, like super fandom.
Yes, the godfather of superfans. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. When you told me you were trying to get him, I was like, okay, I think I know who he is. Then I looked him up, and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen him at like everything.
High energy guy. At least I hope he's still high energy. Yeah,
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I wonder if he still talks like in that gravelly voice. We'll find out.
A lot of yelling. A lot of yelling. Yep.
Well, that's a good one.
All
Looking
right.
forward to that.
Yeah.
At the end of the show?
End of the show, we're going to do mystery guest.
Oh, goody.
Yes.
We get 2 guests today.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Can we get a teaser off the top, or?
Let's see. You both know this guest?
Okay.
Well,
so
that's a start.
So the guy
we
off
know
the
them.
street
We
is-
personally know them, or we know of them.
You personally know him.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is good.
Is this guy? This isn't Paul Delgado again, is it?
No,
We've already done
no.
him once. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Is Cookie coming in?
He would be a great mystery guest.
Man.
Oh.
Holy cow.
All right. So it's
She's
not
busy putting on her 4th of July attire right now. She's too busy for that. That would
Very
be good.
good. All
Well, I
right.
look forward to this. A mystery guest. This means Brian didn't. He was too lazy. This is a holiday show, and he didn't want to come
No,
up
he
with a
didn't
game.
do that. No.
He didn't want to come up with a
No,
game
it's
for us
not.
to play.
We got the calendar planned out.
No,
Okay.
he had to book the mystery guest, so I mean he's putting in extra work. All right, cool. Thanks, BK. We'll see you in a little
man.
bit. If you're listening and you want to watch, go to fox13news.com/nodpod. If you're watching and you want to listen or subscribe, take out your phone, zap that QR code on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner, and there you can find all of our shows. You know, when our nation's forefathers conceived of this new nation, Chris, built upon self-evident truths, we try to embody that in pretty much every show. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of podcasting is what we're all about. We do strive, however, for a more perfect podcast. So please subscribe, fox13news.com/nodpod. So with that being said, All-Star fever is high as well.
It's that
And
time of the year, isn't it? Yeah.
It is that time of year. You know, the Major League Baseball All-Star game, of course. I think, for my money, it's the best All-Star game, and maybe the most relevant All-Star game. I like that they took away the implication of having the World Series be hosted by the winners.
Right.
That was lame. Never made sense. But to me, it's baseball's still baseball. You're
Yeah.
still getting pitchers out there. They're trying to strike guys out. They're not going as long, you know, but guys are still trying to hit home runs. It's not like in the NFL. I don't think the Pro Bowl can exist, honestly.
I don't think it should.
You
in
can't
its
have
current, no.
football. You can't have football. You know, they've changed it over to like a flag football game.
Well, no, it's the skills competition now is what they did this past time, which I actually thought was an improvement over how the game was being played. Like the game in the last 10 years really had just become a joke. You know,
Yeah.
guys were playing flag football, or, you know, people would get Pro Bowl invitations and then turn it down because they didn't want to get hurt, or at the time they didn't want to travel to Hawaii where it was played for a long time. I can't imagine turning down a trip to Hawaii, but not an NFL player. And so it evolved into, I think this past year they just gave up and said, let's do this skills competition. And I watched some of it, and it was actually pretty entertaining. Like these guys were actually trying to compete against each other versus in the Pro Bowl game when, you know, they weren't tackling, they weren't doing anything. So anything would be an improvement over what they had.
Yeah, I think the height of what they reached was the dodgeball game. That
Yeah.
dodgeball was the best thing I'd seen from an NFL All-Star standpoint ever, probably.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, if they did some type of like, what's the show? The Wipeout show?
Yeah.
Like some type of like, you know, you
A
got to
ni-
go dodge giant boxing gloves, and it has nothing to do with football.
Bring back American Gladiator.
Right.
Give them the big
well, there you go.
pugil sticks
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
put them on a platform.
All right, so we eliminate the Pro Bowl. No
No.
hard feelings about that. I
No.
mean, we don't need the week before the Super Bowl. You know, just go championship week right into Super Bowl
Exactly.
week. NBA All-Star Game. Do you have a strong opinion on that?
The worst. Worse than the Pro
pretty-
Bowl, I
it's
think.
pretty bad.
It's unwatchable, and I tried to watch. I couldn't even understand the format of this past one. They keep score by quarter now, so like I guess you bank points up to the end of the first quarter, then they start over in the second quarter. They want the game to be close at the end is the point.
Yeah.
They want it to come down to a final. But these guys don't play defense. It's just it's an exhibition, you know?
Well, let it be just an exhibition of skills then. Just do skills. 3-point dunk contest. I think the dunk contest is kind of lame. They're running out of ideas, but I'm okay with that. You know, do some type of skills competition and just let that be it.
Yeah,
And
I like the dunk contest. I wish they could get it where like the best dunkers would actually get in it. You know, some of the big stars don't really compete. You know, back in the day, it was awesome when you had like Dominique Wilkins, Michael Jordan, Vince Carter.
That's when it felt new. It still had that new dunk contest smell. But now it's like people are just wearing costumes, and it's just silly things that have nothing to do with the actual skill of dunking a basketball, I think.
And the 76ers actually called up a player from their G League team. What was his name? Because they knew he could dunk.
I have no idea.
And he won McGillicuddy,
That-
and he won
that guy.
the dunk contest. It's like no one had heard of him.
Ah,
It's like,
McGibble, that guy.
Yeah, McGibble.
He's off the
he
charts.
flies like a bird.
Yeah.
So we need to do away. I'm fine with NBA doing away with the All-Star game.
The NHL All-Star Game is not bad. I don't really care about the game as much. Again, for most of these, it comes down to like the skills competition. I think the skills competition for hockey is fun. Like hardest hit shot. You know, how many consecutive goals can you stop as a goaltender?
Yeah.
The precision shot, speed skating, like those things are really interesting. I think it puts individual skills on display appropriately, but the game itself, it's just there's no real rooting interest. They divide it up into divisions, and it's just not that fun. But I know that the guys need to be recognized. So just give the midseason awards or the postseason awards, however we do it, in whichever sport. And for most of them, they could probably go away. Let's keep the home run derby.
What's another way you could recognize them, though? Like, what's another way? Okay, you're not invited to play in this meaningless game, so is there another way you could honor an all-star?
Well, I mean, we typically already do that. Like in the NFL, like the All-Pro is all these things matter. Like being named like top at your position, that's the real reward.
You're saying let's just not play a game. Except for MLB.
I like the MLB game. It's mid-season.
Like
it gives the guys a break. It feels a little bit more nostalgic. But I think all the other ones could probably go away. You have a skills competition at the end of the year. Then
I have an idea. What if you have this ability now because this galaxy we live in is vast? Apparently.
Yeah.
They're discovering.
We found that out last week.
We did.
Yeah.
They're discovering new stars all the time.
Okay.
And you can actually, there are websites where you can name a star after someone. You can, because right now all the stars have names like XQ Illudium P3812, depending on where it was found. So
gotcha.
If you're the best wide receiver in the league, now you are
Justin Jefferson,
Mike
star.
Evans.
Okay.
You're the star.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
let's actually name a star after the All-Stars.
That's
Do you like
that's
that?
very clever. Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't like that idea.
Sounds
I
like
could
a
tell.
lot. Sounds like a lot of work.
He's jealous now of he doesn't have a star.
All right, let's dive into the Major League Baseball season. We like their All-Star game, but now that we've passed over the halfway point of the season, maybe we give some like semester grades. What do you think?
I like that.
And we'll base it on what everybody was thinking at the beginning of the year. Who they thought was going to be good, who they thought was going to be bad, and where reality really lies. So let's go with our good, bad, and the ugly. Cue the music. Okay. All right, so good. Now let me just as a kind of we'll take these teams off the maybe you have them on your board. But teams like the Braves, we knew they were going to be good. Astros, we knew they were going to be good, and they're pretty good still. Rays, I thought, and I think a lot of people thought they're going to be good. I think they're better than everybody expected. But I don't have them in my good. I think that already goes without saying. But
okay.
Who do you have in your good?
Taking a bit of a different take on it, I was looking at preseason expectations. I think the Rays are a lot better than people thought they would be. So I definitely have them in my good. And I have the Orioles there as well.
Yep.
Very similar to the Rays. No one expected them to be. They've got the second best record in the American League at this point behind the Rays. And the Rangers, too. Again, exceeding expectations. Getting some great pitching.
Especially since they don't have Jacob deGrom, and they paid a lot of money to have him. And
they did.
Not part of that equation.
Nate Eovaldi has been awesome, and
Former
so run production has been outstanding. They've had a little trouble the last couple of weeks on the road, but they're above expectation in the American League side of it.
Yeah, I would put on the National League side. I put the Giants in that mix. I mean, this team was 500 a year ago. They're like double-digit games over 500 at this point. And I think that they'll be challenging by the end of the season. I think they'll be challenging the D-backs and the Dodgers for the NL West. And then I think the Marlins have exceeded expectations as well.
I think so too.
They were 24 games below 500 last year, and this year, they're in the mix to be a wild card team.
How about the story Luis Arise is giving us, chasing 400? I mean, the guy just slaps these little loopers into shallow outfield all the time, base hit after base hit. Yuri Perez, one of their pitchers, has been at this point like 27 scoreless innings straight. They've still got Alcantara, who's great on the staff. Really impressed with the Marlins. I think the Dodgers have been disappointing. I would have to put them in my
bad?
My bad not ugly, but my bad category now, just based on expectation.
All right. I'll lead off on the bad then. Well, you kind of already did.
Sorry about that.
I think, again, when it comes to expectations, I think we all expected the A's, Royals, Rockies to not be good this year, and they've lived up to that expectation. The Red Sox, they're competing in a tough division, so I will give them that. I think their offense has been pretty good. The pitching side of things, I mean, Chris Sale has a fracture, so he's out. Brian Bello is kind of leading your staff. That's probably not good, especially if you have guys like Sale and Kluber on your staff. the pitching should be better. I like their bats, but to this point they've been bad, and I think that a lot of that is a function of just being in a really dominant division. I got the Angels as bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another disappointing season. You have the two best players in baseball. Like, you really, I mean,
I agree.
Arguably, maybe. But, like, I think that, like, this team needs to be dominating. But, you know, when you compare a team like the Angels to the Rays, you know, how much money is spent and tied up in two major stars, whereas the Rays have not a lot of money, and it's spread out pretty evenly among these guys. And how much more effective that is, how much deeper the Rays are as a team, both sides of the ball. So, but yeah, the Angels, you know, I don't know if they make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs in I think a decade now, 9 years. They have
incredible.
Not made the
They're
playoffs.
slightly above 500 at this point. Not good enough. You know, I have in my bad category the entire AL Central. The team leading it right now is 40-40, and everyone else is bad.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
I don't know that, you know, we expected a lot out of all those guys there. I mean, like you said, we didn't expect the Royals to be anything. You said, this is a obvious ugly one here. Are we doing ugly guys?
I'll just say one more bad.
Yeah.
I think the Yankees have been bad.
Yeah.
I just, to me, I don't know. They've decent pitching. They hit a lot of home runs, but offensively, this is not a Yankees offense.
They're too judge dependent.
Yeah,
when he's out of the lineup, they're not as good. You know, you said Astros you thought were pretty good earlier.
Well, I think they have one of the best pitching staffs still in baseball.
I think they've been a bit disappointing though. The Astros,
little bit, but I think that this team. I mean, I think they'll be back.
They'll straighten it out.
Yeah, they're going to be a postseason.
They do
team.
have great pitching,
and the Yankees could be a postseason team too. I mean, I think overall their record is all right. They're going to be in the mix at the end of the day, but. Just a little disappointing. I think they have to find a way to have more consistent run production. They just don't get on base.
Yeah.
I mean, they can hit some bombs, but that's about it.
Yeah.
All right, so ugly. Who you got? I think that we probably have these all in common.
I'm going to start with the Mets.
They're the
right?
ugliest team.
It has to be. They have the highest payroll by far,
yes.
biggest payroll, and they continue to invent ways to lose games in horrible fashion.
Yep.
It's the bad news Bears.
Yep. Verlander, I mean, I know he was slowed by injury. He seems to kind of have turned a little bit of a corner lately, but, I mean, I don't know what the team does well. I mean, other than like Polar Pete hitting bombs. I mean, he's doing his thing, but Scherzer is like average. But overall, Verlander has not been great. So yeah, it's disappointing, especially when you spend that much money. There's still a lot of time left. I got the Padres too. I think they're very similar, and they may be more disappointing because I love the lineup. I love. Like, so many great names in that lineup: Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts. Like, I mean, this team should be so good, young, talented, but it's not clicking yet. But I think that, again, that division is very winnable. I think the Giants will be in the mix, but I think the Padres could be in there too.
I agree. Expectation-wise, the Padres should be much better. And I'll put one more in there too. They were just in the World Series. The Phillies have been pretty bad, maybe ugly.
Yeah,
I mean they've got what you would think is a good lineup.
Yeah, I mean they missed Bryce Harper for a big chunk of the season. I think that hurts. They had what's his face, Reese, that missed the season. So with an injury. So they've had some hard breaks in there. They might be able to get hot late. All right. So our guest today is Krazy George, and so inspired by the greats. Like if you had a Mount Rushmore of Georges, I mean there'd be. A lot of them.
Isn't there a George on a Mount Rushmore?
There is, in fact. And it's Krazy George with his big drum. No, so let's go a George versus George battle, okay? And then you tell me which George do you like.
All right.
All right, so we got George Foreman against George the Animal Steel.
Oh, that's tough. One, you have the grill. We love the George Foreman grill.
Everybody had the grill.
Yeah.
Everybody probably still does. Nobody still uses it, but yeah.
It's still there. You may have two like I do. He made so much money off of that. The other, you have a man who ate turnbuckles.
Yeah.
He did not grill his turnbuckle before eating it.
No, he ate it raw.
He was also, they're both bald.
No, well, there's a lot more back hair.
That's what I was going to say. They're both bald on the head. George the Animal Steel had hair. He had back hair in his front. He had back hair on his arms. He was walking back hair. Gosh, with George Foreman, There's this movie about him I really want to see.
We're gonna have to go a lot quicker.
Okay,
You
all
can't
right.
do this level of
All right,
breakdown.
sorry, George Foreman. Give me big George Foreman.
I'm going George the Animal Steel.
Okay.
One of a kind for sure. All right, Boy George against George Michael.
I'll go quick. George Michael,
I'll say George Michael too. I only know one Boy George song.
which is the chameleon one, right?
I'm a chameleon.
Yeah.
Something like that. All right, let's go. Curious George.
Wait, real
against,
quick. Can we say best George Michael song at the same time in unison? It's Careless Whisper, right? Like it has to be.
I don't know the names.
All right.
I don't know the names. What's the one? Jitterbug. Is it Jitterbug?
Yeah,
Jitterbug.
that's when he was with Wham, right? Yeah. He
Jitterbug.
gave us a lot of poppy
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that when he was Wham.
How about Curious George versus George Jetson?
Oh, okay. Cartoons. George Jetson kind of was, I think, abusive to Rosie the Robot at times.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to go Curious George. Give me the monkey. He taught me so much. How to fly a kite, how to rescue kittens, how to go to space. Plus, I had a Curious George stuffed animal that was like my stuffed animal. You know, you have the one. He was mine. So give me
Okay.
Curious
Well,
George.
no one's going to teach you how to go to space better than George Jetson, and he flew cars, okay? So give me the future and George Jetson. George Clooney or George Lucas?
Oh, more handsome? Lucas. Oh, man. One gave us Star Wars, which what a gift.
I never jumped in on that franchise. So
I know. Yeah,
it's easy for me. I'm going to go Clooney.
I'd judge you for that. I'm going to go Clooney as well, because I think someone else would have come up with Star Wars if George Lucas hadn't, but we only have one Clooney.
Yeah. Okay, George Harrison or George Clinton?
Okay. People are going to lose their minds, but we've talked about this.
You're about to get funky, aren't you?
I don't.
Yeah, funky.
So the Beatles are not my favorite band, but I don't dislike them, but I just think they are.
You think they're overrated?
Yes, because of and that's not to say I don't think their music's good, but I'm just saying if I played you one of their songs and didn't say this was the Beatles, I think most people would say, "Oh, that's a nice song," or give me the whole Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band. I don't know. I just think they're overrated, but I think George Harrison himself
Is underrated.
Here's what I'm saying. If he was not a Beatle, he would not have the cred that he does.
Okay.
Right? Do you see this guy just going out and having a career on his own?
I don't know. I don't disrespect the Beatles as much as you clearly do.
I don't disrespect
episode
them.
41, the one where Chris says the Beatles were overrated. Look, I don't know. I don't know anything about George Harrison, but I love George Clinton because I love the funktastic. I like the hair dye, and I want to get down with some funk.
And
yeah.
how about Atomic Dog?
Yeah, that's good. All right,
Yeah.
George Steinbrenner or George Costanza?
Well, one worked for the other at one point. I love the one where he thinks George has died, and he comes to George's parents' home to tell them that George is dead, and all George's dad can do is gripe at him for trading. Was it Jay Buhner? How could you trade Buhner for? I gotta go. Well, George Steinbrenner did a lot for Tampa with his philanthropy. So let's go Steinbrenner.
No, but Costanza has done way more for me than George Steinbrenner could ever dream of doing. So I'm going to definitely go George Costanza. And unfortunately, the cotton uniforms didn't really work out. What about George Costanza versus Opposite George? Remember the Opposite George episode?
Yeah. Opposite George.
If everything you do is wrong, then the opposite of that must be correct.
Must be correct. What about Eddie George versus Jeff George?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, I think Eddie George has more of a is he a Hall of Famer candidate maybe potentially?
He could be. He's not. Yeah, not yet.
Yeah. Jeff George had a long career, but I'm gonna go Eddie George.
I think Jeff is considered one of the most disappointing #1 draft picks.
I don't know. The dude played for like 40 years. I mean,
he did.
He was around for a long time, and he still had a cannon until the day he retired.
How did this happen though? In college, he threw 35 touchdowns and 35 interceptions. And how is he the #1 overall pick? I don't know.
Well, those interceptions are impressive. Can we get to our favorite George of the day?
It would be Krazy George.
Let's do it. Well, Chris, our guest today is one of the great Georges to ever grace the athletic arena. No, not as an athlete, though athletics probably required in his venture, but as one of the great and original superfan / cheerleaders, we welcome to the No Off Days podcast, Krazy George Henderson. Krazy George. Oh, there he brought the Trump.
Oh, that is great.
That's the best entrance that we've ever had for a guest, by the way. I mean, my goodness. So, Krazy George, having you here for me personally is very nostalgic. So I grew up going to a lot of Oakland A's baseball games back in the day. So, like, we're talking 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Before I got to the Oakland Coliseum, I know I wanted to see Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Carney Lansford, all the crew.
Ricky.
But I had to locate where Krazy George was in the stadium, and you were there for just about every game. How did you do it? You were at every game I went to as an A's fan.
Yes, I was. I was almost at all the A's games. They had me for 25 home games, but the biggest 25 during the season. So I covered more than half the fans that came to the game. And I started in about 78 with them. I lasted 4 years with the A's. It was great. And that was the year in 1981 with the A's. I debuted the wave that's now gone around the world.
See, I told you, Chris. He invented the wave.
When,
People didn't
listen,
believe me, Krazy George, but you did.
Krazy George, when he tells me this yesterday and says we have a possibility of interviewing you, he said this guy invented the. I'd heard of you, of course, I'd seen you, but I said he invented the wave. Like, how do you invent a wave? And then I read about it, and I'll let you tell the short story. But yeah, this thing kind of evolved, and then you did it at an A's Yankees game. And I hope you're getting royalties. I hope every time in a sporting arena somewhere when people stand up and do this, money's going into your bank account. Is that the case?
I wish that was true.
How did it happen?
Well, it was a process, just like anything else. I really say I invented it that game, but I debuted it to the world that game because I was doing it at smaller venues for about a year before that. And there was only like 6,000 people at like Colorado Rocky hockey games. I was doing it at high school rallies. But I get to the Oakland A's game. It was nationally televised. I have it on TV. It was a playoff game, so I have video of it. Joe Gargiola was the announcer for that game, and he talked all about it. So that's the day I say I invented the wave. But really, that's the day I debuted it to the world, because after that, it was sent around the United States. Then they started in Seattle at the University of Washington. They did it there 2 weeks later. And then all the universities saw it. It started spreading around the United States. And of course, it went around the world, and almost every venue in the world in sports does the wave.
I think the whole world could collectively do a wave at once if you were leading it with that drum. And for our audio audience, I want to point out that as we look at George in his office here, he literally has a picture of a wave behind him, a giant wave crashing.
Right there, but don't forget to tell them how good looking I am.
Very good look. I mean, you have not aged, honestly. You have looked almost the same since I remember you back in the 80s at those Oakland A's games. But I got to know, like, how did you set upon this journey? Because, I mean, obviously you got upper body strength from banging that drum. I've seen you in the short jean cutoff, so I know you got some core strength as well. Did you ever play sports? Like, how did you make that transition into being a super fan / cheerleader?
Well, I was going to San Jose State, and I was on the national NCAA national championship judo team for 6 years. And during that transition time, somebody handed me a drum at a game, and I started hitting the drum, and I wasn't a cheerleader. And pretty soon everybody at San Jose State was following me, and then they elected me cheerleader. Well, that interfered with my judo stuff. So I transitioned to cheerleading, and then in 1975, 1975, Lamar Hunt saw me with the Kansas City Chiefs and asked me to do a game for him. And at the end of the game, he hired me full time. And I quit teaching.
That was it.
I was a teacher. I was a pathetic teacher.
I bet you weren't. I bet you're short selling yourself. It's incredible. You literally, and I'm looking at your list of different professional sports franchises you've worked for. You've been like a cheer mercenary. Like a team needs some energy. They need a boost in the arena or the stadium, and they hire you. And you bounced around, my goodness, probably a list of 40, maybe more programs here. College, pro, all kinds of levels.
Yeah, I've worked for over 100 pro teams. I've traveled around the United States. I cheered in front of 25 million people.
Can you give us a favorite?
Wow.
I know it's hard. I know it's like picking a favorite child, but was there a certain franchise you were with where the crowd just responded to you? There was something special about it. Can you pick a favorite?
Connection.
Yes.
Well, it's really tough. I mean, my favorite, of course, is San Jose State, my school. I was on the national championship judo team, and then I was a cheerleader for 2 years there. I graduated from San Jose State. It is my school. But for a professional team, it was probably, it's probably the San Jose Earthquakes.
Really?
Because that's the first team to ever hire me. It started me on my pro career, and it changed the face of soccer. The cheering was so phenomenal, and soccer had never seen that before. I started with them, and that gave me the entrance to Lamar Hunt. Saw me at a soccer game, asked me to do one Kansas City Chiefs game. And the game I did for Kansas City Chiefs, their first game was preseason. They lost 45-0. And I was my first game, and I destroyed the place.
They lost.
The players were clearly distracted.
They lost, but you won.
That's right.
Well, it's funny because you started in soccer, but back in the day, you did some Rowdies games here in the other Bay Area, here in Tampa Bay, right?
Oh, I just love going. I love Tampa Bay. This was a new experience. I just started off in my career as a professional cheerleader, and they saw me at an Earthquake game, and they asked me to come to the Tampa Bay Rowdies game, and there was a Rodney Marsh was their star player. I came into Tampa Bay, and I'm not kidding. The crowd just went nuts, and they'd never seen anything like that. And they wanted me for every game where I wasn't doing San Jose Earthquakes, because I was under full-time contract with them. So I started doing Tampa Bay Rowdy games, and it was such a great atmosphere there. I loved being there, and the atmosphere was just a whole different ball game because I'd never seen weather like that. The first game, it was like a flood, and I had rain like a monsoon. We were hit with lightning. It was fun.
Welcome to Florida, yeah. As you look across, since you are the GOAT of the Superfan, as you look across the Superfan landscape now, is there someone with a certain team that you look at and you say, boy, I like what that guy does. He's got a spirit that I relate to. He could, possibly one day fill the shoes of the Superfan Hall of Fame. I mean, we've got the big nasty here at the Bucks games. The Chiefs have, well, let's not talk about the Chiefs' current Superfan, his situation. But is there anyone you have your eye on out there that you really like, an up-and-comer?
Gosh, I wish I would have followed that a little closer, but no, I go around doing my business. I've really been retired for 5 years, but the San Jose Earthquakes keeps rehiring me every year. They call me up, George, we want you back. And yes, I've slowed up quite a bit, but I still got my drop-in, gorgeous, good looks. Ah!
Wow. He just ate his camera.
I imagine you sleep about 2 hours a night. You wake up, eyes fully open, you just jump out of bed. I mean, does the energy level ever subside? Do you sleep? I'm curious.
Well, I do sleep, but I just want to go back, and I want to talk those early years when I was doing the Houston Oilers and the Minnesota Vikings. I went into these places unknown. Nobody knew me back then. There was no internet. And when I did a game, I told them, the team that was hiring me, do not advertise I'm coming. I will show up. I'll have fun. If you like what I do, you might want to rehire me. But I never, ever announced who I was. I'd show up, and by the end of the first half of every game I ever did, I changed the face of sports at that stadium. I got so much noise going that they'd never seen before. And almost every team hired me full-time after that.
They couldn't say no. The ultimate cheerleader. Can I take it back to where Scott started with the Oakland A's, near and dear to your heart, as we look at where that franchise is now? And my goodness, you go back through the decades with the teams they had in the 70s, and then, as Scott mentioned, the late 80s and the World Series there. Now we're at a point where it appears they're pulling out of Oakland. And we just see, such a sad state of affairs with the Coliseum there. What are your thoughts on that, as close as you are to the A's?
Well, the A's fans were been so wonderful. I invented the wave there in '81, and then they only used me for those 4 years around 1981. But then they bring me back about every 5 or 10 years to do a nostalgia game or something. They brought me back for the 25th anniversary of the wave, the 40th anniversary of the wave, and it's just been great. And the fans are so loyal, and it's been so tough. With their record, if they would have anybody spending some money on the team, they would be selling out every game. It was a great atmosphere. Back when I was there in '81 with Billy Martin, we were just having the greatest time. The fans love the team, and that's why the wave is so great. It interconnects the fans. Every fan is interconnected with each other to show support for their team. They're part of the team. And after I do a wave, the energy level raises so high into the stadium that my next cheers are better and better than before I did the waves. That's what the wave does. It interconnects fans.
They're just going to have to send you to Vegas. Can you imagine Krazy George on the Strip in Vegas? I mean, just how energetic. You might blow the roof off that place.
Really?
Sure.
Yeah, that may be the last.
Except for the heat.
Yeah, I know,
Except for the heat, for sure. Well, you wrote a book, and we want to know a little bit more about this. So this is Still Krazy After All These Cheers. It is available on Amazon, on Kindle, on paperback. What are we in for when we dive into the pages of Still Krazy After All These Cheers?
Well, I have a lot of sports stories. I got to tell you about some of my entrances. I once came in a hang glider into the game.
Wow.
This is so good. I was on a tow line. I was flying across the field. The guy towing me drove under the goalpost, and I was on a tow line. I couldn't go over the goalpost, so I had to flare out and dive under the goalpost. And guess what? The opposing team was there. I smashed into them.
Oh, I got to see video. Is there video of this? We got to find this.
Oh my gosh, I wish there was. And second, I made an entrance once with a lion. Think about this. I'm coming in with the trainer and the lion at what was it called? Dallas Tornado soccer game.
Okay.
We started coming in. Now think about this. There's 15,000 people cheering and screaming. We get to center field. The trainer of the lion trips. The lion looks back, sees him on the ground. He's upset already because of the crowd. He attacks the trainer.
No.
And I'm standing next to him. Blood everywhere. I can't believe it.
No, really? You watched a lion attack a man at a sporting event.
Next to him.
Were you at the Roman? Were you at the Roman Coliseum? Are you sure you weren't at the Roman Coliseum?
He did the
It was just like it. Now he told me never hit the drum near the lion. I thought, good advice. But he's being eaten on the field. So I take the drum, and he has the gall while he's underneath the lion to yell, "Get him off me!" What? And then he says it again.
Wait,
Get him off.
He wanted you to get the lion off.
Yeah, and what do? The only thing I knew what to do. He said, never hit the drum around the lion. I went, and the lion stopped eating him.
You saved this
and
man's
looks
life.
at me, and this is not good. Now the lion is looking at me. I'm looking at the lion. There's blood everywhere on the trainer, and the other trainer by then gets out on the field, grabs the lion, takes the trainer away, the other one, and they leave the field. Woo, that was a good entrance.
Well, that is one of the many stories that you will find inside the pages of Still Krazy After All These Cheers. He has lived the life that, of course, deserves to be written about, and of course, you were a big part of my childhood at Oakland A's games. It has been an absolute privilege. Still banging the drum after all these years as well. I'm not sure how your neighbors feel about that.
There's the drum, everybody.
There he is, the great Krazy George. Thank you for joining us on the No Off Days podcast. How about that?
Best
Fantastic
interview
stuff.
ever. Thank you.
Hey, thanks out there.
They love you in Tampa Bay still. Krazy George. My goodness, that was so good. And that was Krazy George on decaf. Can you imagine?
Oh, my goodness.
That was intense, right?
I am looking around to make sure there are no lions in the studio. Or I need a drum in case there is one.
Oh, let's bring in BK. I mean, that has to top the list of guests we've had on
Very
this program.
top.
Yeah.
Holy cow! And good get by Scott there.
Well, right out of the gates. I mean, he brought the drum. I was not sure. It's been a while, but he had a reputation. He certainly, in my estimation, he surpassed it.
Yeah, well done. We're going to start just trolling your childhood memories for our next
There's a few
podcast guest.
There's a few.
Who else would you like to talk to?
Some more scarring than others, but Krazy George was great. So I believe that sets the bar pretty high for our next guest, which we don't know who it is.
It's the mystery guest.
Yeah, we've got our mystery guest back. Last time it was Paul Delgado, our chief meteorologist here at Fox.
So we
13.
set the bar low.
So nice and low.
This is above
Paul.
Delgado.
He kind of quizzed us on some made up weather terms that he conjured up. So do you have some clues for us? Okay.
Okay, the mystery guest was born in San Francisco, California.
Is it crazy? Is Krazy
No,
George?
no, don't.
Is he here?
I don't think we
We
can
would have
handle
heard,
it
we would
anymore.
have heard him by now. I thought I heard some banging next door. I thought it was the studio remodel, but okay.
The mystery guest went to elementary school in Peoria, Illinois.
Oh,
Interesting.
okay.
Illinois.
The mystery guest's first car was a Ford Mustang.
Okay.
This could be a lot of people. I got to be honest
on
with
race
you.
day.
Yeah.
Although lucky person, whoever this is, to get a Mustang as their
No
first
kidding.
car.
I wonder if they were a military brat because of the relocation.
Oh.
You go from San Francisco all the way to Illinois. I don't know. Can we get like
Get you
is
one
it
more clue.
male, female? Like
Oh, that might help.
Are they employed
Okay.
by our TV station?
Okay, the last clue, the mystery guest met her husband
Her husband.
Okay.
through Fidel Castro and Pope John Paul II.
Wait, what?
Yes.
I know who
Like that was,
I know who this is now.
like that, like Pope John Paul and Fidel Castro like hooked them up.
Yes.
I know
Great
somebody.
story.
Yeah, I got
Okay,
so much.
okay, we got to get to it. Who's? I have no idea.
The things people did before Tinder.
All right, who is it?
Cato knows.
It's Linda.
Linda
Hurtado.
All right, well,
My-
let's see.
Yeah.
Big reveal from. It is Linda.
I knew that last
How about-
clue. I knew that last clue would give it away to
Good
you.
to see you. I'm gonna hold your chair.
Yeah,
Oh my
no, let
gosh.
me. This is. It
I don't
has
know what
wheels.
scares me more, sitting between you two or trying to get up on this chair
Well,
gracefully.
welcome into the No Off Days podcast. I have to start with this story. What Pope John Paul and Fidel Castro hooked you and your husband up?
Well, we met because of them. They didn't actually send out invitations to a party, but Fidel Castro invited the Pope to Cuba, and so families from Tampa went back for the first time in like 30 years because they opened it for people who had left Cuba.
Gotcha.
So we covered the story of people from Tampa going to Cuba for the first time in, decades. And one of the families I interviewed was Jorge's family. I interviewed his mom and dad. And he was there, so that's actually the first time I met him in the Plaza de la Revolution in Cuba.
Wow.
Yes, I've actually been there when we went for
Yes.
the Rays. So
That's
I've been-
right.
Yeah. Is
Did-
that why you interviewed his family? Because
Well-
who's this cute gentleman over here?
Well, that did cross my mind, but no. I interviewed his family because decades after the revolution, Castro was still dividing them. There were four brothers, and only two would go to Cuba with the parents. They wanted to see Cuba through the eyes of their parents, and they didn't know if they'd get another chance. But the other two brothers refused to go back as long as Castro was in charge. They didn't want to give any money to the Castro regime. So my story was basically the decades after a revolution is over, the leader is still dividing families.
Yeah. Has he gone back? Have you guys gone back since?
Yes, he's gone back, and a couple of our kids have gone back too.
Okay.
Just to see the country through the eyes of their grandmother and grandfather, because I don't think those stories can be told by anybody else.
Exactly.
So it was important for us to take our kids back while they were still alive.
Yeah, my trip was short, but I was struck by how you could see kind of the skeleton of a very beautiful city at one point in time.
I called it beauty and decay, right?
That's it. That's absolutely.
From a distance, it's magnificent, but up close, you see the electrical wires hanging down in the street, and the
Walls
asphalt
just
broken,
crumbled,
and
yeah.
all of that. The infrastructure is just not taken care of.
Well, that was a great assignment. You had a
Yes, it was.
wonderful assignment and met a husband there and started a beautiful family. You guys
Yes.
have a big family, a wonderful family too. I know you're so proud of your children. Your daughters are taking over the world one day, I'm sure. And one of them, we've been fascinated to follow Jackie's journey, is a pilot, which, wow, we need more of those right now in the travel industry. So we're talking commercial. That's what she's getting into?
She's going to be a commercial pilot, yes, and it's really strange the way that all happened because all of our other kids were in the medical field. we have a doctor, we have a nurse, we have a paramedic, and then the youngest one is going to study psychology. But my father was a pilot in the Air Force, and all of a sudden Jackie said she would want to take one of these free flights, like I forget what it's called, but an Eagle flight. And so we took her up in the plane with a friend of ours. He let her fly it. She flew over Raymond James, all the way to Clearwater Beach, down across the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. This was her first time. Obviously, she wasn't totally flying the plane. He was helping her. But when she landed, she turned to me and she said, "Mom, I want to learn how to fly." And she was 16, so she got her driver's license and her pilot's license the same year.
Can you imagine?
That's the way to do
She
it.
found her passion, but I like to think my dad is up there flying with her, and that I lost my dad when I was 8 months pregnant with her. And so we always said that the colonel wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
And so his spirit flew into my daughter, and she's just like him. We call her the little colonel.
That is so beautiful.
That's a
Are
great
you? I know. Look, I know what the stats say. I know we're much more likely for something to happen when we're driving a car. But don't you get nervous when she's flying?
I was her first passenger. When she got her solo license, I was the first person she took up, and I thought that was important. I had to show my daughter I trusted her, and it was really great. I mean, that was kind of when the shift took place, and you guys will see when you go from being maybe the parent to the equal. You know that shift happens, and I'm like, I can't fly this plane, but my daughter can.
I'm not ready for that shift, that's for sure.
Right.
Well, already in your storytelling out here with us, you speak beautifully.
Thank you.
Beauty and Decay was your description of Cuba, your description of your father, flying into Jackie. And this is not why you've joined us on this podcast, but I'm going to do it anyway. You are an author too. You're a writer. I've read, I won't say all of your books. Some of them are very mushy, romancy.
They're like a James Bond movie. There's a little romance. James Bond always gets the girl.
They get a little too hot and heavy for
They
me.
do. There's a little too much description of men's backsides sometimes for me. But you've taken a turn now.
You just sold a lot of books for me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I wonder where you got your material. But so you've taken a turn though. Now you've gotten in kind of a darker mystery.
Yes.
I read the last one, All the Broken Girls,
Right.
is out now. Really good page turner. I mean, like you can get through this thing in 2 or 3 nights. Great characters. Based on a news reporter, so not a big stretch for you to bring that character to life. And now you're coming out with you're working on the second book.
Right. The second book right now is called All the Missing Girls, and it takes place in Cuba. Imagine that. I write under the name Bond too. Do you know the story of that? Why I write under Linda Bond?
Well, I think that it had to do with the fact that didn't you just say you write kind of like a James Bond?
Right, but
thriller?
my uncle is James Bond.
Your uncle is.
He is.
Pierce Brosnan?
No, I wish. Not the movie.
Sean Connery.
Not Sean Connery.
Ashworth.
Not the movie actor.
Oh, Daniel Craig. That's the one we
okay.
like.
I see
That
the
would be
family
the James
resemblance.
Bond I would pick, actually. He was a law professor, but his name was James Bond, so my mother's maiden name. So I took my mother's maiden name because I write thrillers, and it just made sense,
perfect.
right, to go by Bond.
That's good stuff. And you've been anchoring for a long time. You've had the opportunity to work alongside some great professionals.
Such as you two.
Well, I was going to say, but now you have to anchor in the 4 o'clock next to this guy. How disappointing is that?
No, listen, he's a great writer too. And so I pick his brain, and he actually helped me with my last book, All the Missing Girls, because my publisher said take all the romance out of it. And I said, I know just the person.
I knew a guy.
I'm gonna get Cato to strip
we need to
all
write a
the-
character for a country bumpkin. Do you know anybody that can
We
help?
need a guy who knows nothing about romance. Let's bring him
I
in.
just told him honestly, when you roll your eyes,
Yeah.
put a check there, and I'll take it out because I wanted it to be a true thriller that men would enjoy, and so he did roll his eyes a couple of times.
Yeah. Dial back the backside.
Yeah.
And then more. Yeah. I got
Homicide
you.
detective looked good in jeans.
Yeah.
More blood, less steam. How about that? No.
Well, we know that you're a big Bulldog fan, but
Yes.
as Chris has he's kind of winked at me that we're out of time, so we can't talk about your Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh,
we-
how
no, we-
convenient is that?
No, we got to do that. I can see. I peel back the curtain. I actually have to get ready for the 4 o'clock news. You're already here from.
And I've already
from
read
noon
the
to
show,
noon.
so
yeah, and
I'll
I've
just-
read
I know.
nothing. So, but yeah.
See, this
you're-
is what I carry him for on podcast
it's
days.
pretty clear. Not just podcast.
I'm
days.
joking.
Well, look, you've been first of all a great friend, but our Bulldog, our Crimson Tide Georgia rivalry has been fun.
It has been
Although I
fun.
don't like how it's gone. the past couple of years.
Do you think I'm gonna have the advantage for the next couple of years?
I think
Scott,
yeah. I don't see what's going to knock you off the perch there.
Do I need to start coming up with some good bets that, you know?
Yeah, I think you're
in
too.
the SEC
I think
championship?
I do think you're too kind to him. I think
He
that you
twirled
need
my
to-
baton.
Hey,
That was delicious to watch.
Twist that baton while you have the chance. That's what I'm saying.
Good.
She's going to send me to Cuba. That'll be my next.
For research
Aside
for our
of
next book.
Well, you might find a wife there. You never know.
Oh,
That could be-
hey. There
that's
you go.
right.
I like
What
it.
That would be a whole
understand.
nother book.
Well, we have to thank our mystery guest, Linda Bond, Linda
I
Hurtado.
like being mystery,
And
yes.
it was great to finally get you on the podcast.
Oh, and I love the podcast. I'm a big fan of both of you two.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you kind of making that up for everybody to hear. But we love having you, and we love working alongside you. So that was a great mystery guest. Thank you, BK.
Yeah.
And we have big thanks to Krazy George.
I'm
balanced
sorry
it
I
out.
missed
No.
Krazy George.
Well, you balanced everything out.
I have not tamed any lions, but I do work with you two. So
Not much of a difference.
And you don't have to beat a drum, but if you could knock him on the side of the head, that would be wonderful as well. So, again, just pick up our podcast by going to fox13news.com/NODPOD or hit the QR code on the screen. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. Get us every week in audio form. Again, Linda, thanks for hopping in.
it's been fun.
Yeah. Don't be a stranger. Come back anytime.
For Chris, Krazy George, BK in the booth, and our entire NODPOD crew, until the next time we are on, there are no off days.